Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of The Damage Report under lockdown and on Friday, which means we have Brett Erlich with us, host of the Happy Half Hour. How's it going?
For all you happy half-hour stands out there, I'm pretty excited about this week's show because Ida Rodriguez joins us.
What?
She drinks something that was delivered to her house that she opened and was like, I'm going to drink it. I'm not sure what it is. I'm going to drink it. And we go through the more out of necessity. If you watch her show at noon Pacific today on her YouTube channel, which I think Charlemagne's joining her today, then it'll all make sense after. Yeah, so Truth Serum with Ida, follow her on YouTube at noon Pacific.
Yeah.
It'll be happening.
Okay.
And
well, that sounds fun.
And then follow and then watch us at after post game today.
Yeah.
Right here.
That sounds pretty good. Well, thank you for joining us. We're hoping to have a show that's at least half as fun and twice as informative. That's what we're going for. We're going to do our best. Everybody who is already in the chat, thank you for joining us. I know that you had to deal with like a 5-minute period of us not there. No audio, no video. But thank you for sticking through without any sound. If you are here, and wow, many of you are, please hit the like button. We want people to know that the stream is going on. We've got a pretty big news day. There's been some brutal videos going viral last night. We're going to be talking about those. We've got tons of news, and also, of course, it's Friday, so we're going to be doing our garbage people. And I know that, Brett, I know you have a video. I didn't look at it yet, so I don't know who yours is. Mine is ridiculous. I'm just going to say that.
Okay, John.
So stick around, everybody.
Tease. John, you're such a tease.
It's ridiculous.
That's
all I'm saying.
And what I just brainstormer. What can I do to create as much time between now and when we eventually show this first video? Because it is a soul crusher.
Yeah.
Sorry, I killed the mood.
It's what we signed up for. So
sorry, we're gonna press just on. Ask my wife. I kill the mood.
I will only put it off for an extra 15 seconds or so to say, hit the like button, like I already said. Also, chat along, super chat along. We'll be reading those. And finally, I did want to let you know, these graphics never show up well when I try to screen cap it like this, but Brooke Thomas, her podcast, Controlling Our Narrative, has a new episode. She talks about why 1,000 health experts signed an open letter explaining why protests against systemic racism must be supported. That is now available in all of those places where podcasts are available. So go take a look at Controlling Our Narrative with Brooke Thomas, big friend of the show. Anyway, let's get back to the news. Brett, buckle up. The news is what it is. Video went viral out of protests in Buffalo yesterday when cops callously and casually pushed over an elderly man who became severely injured as a result of it. We're going to show you this video. Obviously, it is, like many of these videos going around, hard to watch, so consider yourself warned.
He is leaking! He's out of his ear! He's bleeding out of his ear! He's bleeding out of his ear! Get him medic! What the f***ing up on here?
Okay, so you've more than likely seen that. He was immediately bleeding out of his ear immediately after. He had come up, people believe that he was returning a lost riot helmet to the cops. I'm not sure if that's the case, but he certainly wasn't violent. He is a 75-year-old man who got in their way, and so they pushed him over it was nothing.
It's difficult for me to I always try to wrap my mind around the other side's point of view. And here, it's hard for me to do that. Because what you want out of your police is just like good, effective, people-saving police that makes any sense whatsoever. And nothing about the way they handled that guy made any sense to me. And nothing about the way they handled the moments after he's on the ground bleeding made any sense to me. It did for a second. It made sense for a second when you hear that thing, that moment that happens in a lot of videos people see online when something terrible happens and there's that sound, that very real, terrifying sound that is natural when people respond and just go, oh, whoa, this is actually bad.
Yeah.
But then what happened after that it immediately didn't make any more sense to me, because the person who is saying push him, who seemed to be in charge of what was happening at the moment, you see on the faces of what seemed to be good cops for a flash of a second, you see them be human. And then after that, they stop.
Yeah, there was like a brief second where the cops seemed to think, oh, we need to check on him. And then the others were like, no, just continue. And eventually someone does go over to him. Look, I have a lot of thoughts on this. Before we get to the analysis, I have to show you the other angle on this. I don't know if this has been seen as widely. It has been available since last night. And so I'm gonna show this to you, but you need to understand that this is even more difficult. So this is my warning to you. The sound of his head hitting the pavement is just... And look, a couple things. So, like, is this the most shockingly, purposefully violent thing that we've seen? No, certainly not. I mean, people have died. And we've seen video of cops running after people and viciously beating them with clubs. Multiple people beating a woman yesterday who apparently was fighting back after being groped. The thing that hits me about this is it's so casual and callous. Get out of my way, old man. And you push him over. This isn't even the first time we've seen an old person being pushed over. They knocked over on one of the first nights an old man with a cane who was just on the street. No indication he was a protester. It's the idea that, like, you standing in front of us, for whatever reason, we don't have to be concerned about you at all. We can just push you over. It is the lack of regard for what they're doing and the damage that can come from it.
Yeah.
It makes me sick.
And I understand. Again, I'm trying to be empathetic here. Like, the cop, and I've heard this from multiple cops and from other people in law enforcement, is a cop responds and shows up on everyone, this is a saying, this isn't my saying, but they say the cops show up on everyone's worst day. That's they're going there to everybody's worst day. Okay, I get it. Like, so does a doctor. So does a surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
Does the surgeon then have a license to be like, oh, this is so intense, gonna do something terrible? No. And is any of that on display there? Is that necessary in that moment? And not just that, there's someone saying, push him. That's push him back. That's what they're chanting at other cops.
Yeah.
And then in the wake of the moment when the man's head hits the floor, the cop who is behind it, the person pushing the person, then says, go get those two.
Yeah.
And what did those two people do in the background? Say, is he okay? He's bleeding from his ears.
Yeah.
What's bad about that? And I mean, the question, I mean, let's design what we want from the police department. Like, I definitely don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't want police to show up at a peaceful protest and make it not peaceful. And that's the kind of stuff that has happened. And I need that, and we all need that to stop. And that's just in response to something that's different, which
Mm-hmm.
is systemic racism. Now we're like talking about how to handle the reaction, and we haven't even gotten to the core issue yet. But folks are pointing out, like, the themes, the problems with police culture that are creating both the original issues of police brutality against unarmed black men who are just minding their business after starting off at age 0, getting people having their parents pull them aside and say, like, you can't just mind your business. That's not enough.
Yeah.
And now it's boiled over into like cross-racial demonstrations that turn into more police brutality. We're trying to find the through line, and I think people have said it over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And people have been attacking the protests as illegitimate from the very beginning. If you're going to make that case, man, there's a lot that you have to ignore every day. Now, a lot of people in the comments have been asking what ended up happening to the man. As far as we know, he was injured, was in serious but stable condition. That is the latest that I have seen. But we also have the narrative coming out of the police. So in an initial statement about this, the police said that the man tripped and fell after a skirmish with police. Tripped and fell. Later that Thursday evening, Police Commissioner Byron Lockwood said that 2 officers were suspended after reviewing the video, which showed the man being shoved to the ground and then walked past by officers. That the mayor said there's no attempt to mislead about that whole tripped and fell thing. Apparently, how the situation was being observed, it was observed from a camera mounted behind the line of police officers, the captain is saying. Afterward, they got that video. Okay, but the whole thing blew up because of that video. We had all already... Like, you put out that statement to a public who uniformly already knew what had happened. How were the police the only ones who didn't know what had happened at that point?
They did. He knows. I mean, he was involved in pushing the guy.
Yeah.
The police officer who said, go get those guys and push him back, way back. That dude... is this his force caused the fall. Mm-hmm. And this is that is the that is one that in this situation, that is a face of the problem.
Yeah.
And it's systemic. It is, I mean, and what you saw was a microcosm, and you described it well as, is this the most like overt, like I'm pushing someone, but it does get to the culture, which is we're going to protect these guys now. Mm-hmm. And we are going to get so far away from the original mission, which is to protect and serve. And it sounds like all that they're protecting and serving is each other, mm-hmm. and not us. And that's not allowed.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if that video, if the 2 videos hadn't been available, what would have happened? Would anything have happened?
Right. And then would
they have admitted it? We don't know. It's speculation. But we don't know.
So central to law enforcement too, all the way through like prosecutions and convictions is surveillance, mm-hmm. and they like it when it's good surveillance, but they hate it when it's bad surveillance. So does everyone.
Yeah.
So does everyone.
Yeah, and look, I just want to briefly show this.
Relative to,
like we've had people who've been sending in like instances of the cops in their areas not doing stuff like this. Taking a knee, dancing, things like that. And that is obviously far preferable to what we're seeing. But I want to draw your attention to a tweet I saw last night that pointed out that this came 24 hours after that. Mm-hmm. That's the same spot. And they had been kneeling. And they had been, I guess, understanding. And one day later... casually pushing someone over because he dared to stand in their way.
And then afterwards, not being a person.
Not being a person.
All of it. Every aspect of it. And then you just hear prosecutions like, after you knew you were implicated in a crime, what did you do? Did you come forward? No. Did you further cover it up? Yes. Why can't they suffer the same consequences as normal people?
Yeah.
It's because they have a really dope police union. Mm-hmm. You know, that's it. Like I've talked to people in Los Angeles who are involved in work for the DA's office who say that they can't get a list of bad sheriffs because the union's so strong.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that keeps coming up as one of the biggest like obstacles to any sort of reform. It's not the only one. Donald Trump had an impromptu press conference this morning. He called it that, although he seemed to have no interest whatsoever in questions. But there were some questionable things that happened, including this reference that Trump made to George Floyd. Now, I'm going to play this clip for you. I want you to understand that this comes almost immediately after his call for governors to stop being proud and dominate the streets. He then transitioned to this.
Hopefully George is looking down right now and saying, there's a great thing that's happening for our country. There's a great day for him. It's a great day for everybody. This is a great day for everybody. This is a great, great day.
Yeah. He had praised our great Minneapolis police and said, I don't understand why anyone would run from them, because he either doesn't care about any of what led to these protests or is purposefully pretending he doesn't understand it. Invoking the name of George Floyd, while he spent the time during the memorial attacking people, including Obama, on Twitter. Like, we're fresh off of how many more videos of police brutality. He had nothing to say about any of that. He again called for dominating the streets. Well, we showed you the video in Buffalo. They're dominating some of the streets, I guess.
I mean, I don't know how else to say it. He's trying to widen your justice butthole. That's it. Like, and it hurts the moment he says George Floyd. And this is the one that is way more than you're typically used to, because you've gotten used to a lot of stuff from Trump. But for him to invoke George Floyd's name, for that to come out of his mouth.
Yeah.
This first time it's bad. And his ploy is for the next time not to be so bad. For him, he's going to try to turn George Floyd against the protesters. That's what he's going to, that's why he did what he did. And he is trying to do the following. What he's saying that about is the job numbers, because the job numbers aren't as bad as people said. And a certain job number ticked up.
I'm going to have those.
I know, but like, he's trying to say that this is an economic issue when it very clearly isn't.
But also, it is difficult to follow his meaning when he is jumping back and forth from the protesters to the Green New Deal to George Floyd to, like, he has no idea what he's trying to communicate.
No, but that's his plan. I mean, that's him. He is, when you see sumo wrestlers at the beginning, just do this. When they first start, they do the 1,000-hand slap. That's his whole strategy.
Yeah.
Is just hit you to get you off balance. And that's what he's been doing since he decided he was going to run for president.
Yeah. Well, people are feeling slapped because I don't know who heard him invoke the name of George Floyd and thought, yeah, no, he should do that. Or he can do that.
That's what they want to do. I mean, there's people who decide they like him, think that's okay. I mean, this is one. So often we sit there and go like, okay, I don't know if I have to point this out, but I will. You know, that instinct, you have that instinct. I've heard you say, like, do I have to debunk your argument?
Yeah.
Like, no. Hopefully George Floyd is looking down on this and smiling. I don't even know where to start with that. Like, people took to the streets to avenge his death in a way that is so intuitive. That is, hey, we should point out that what happened is wrong. And this guy, and it's not only is he using economics numbers to do it. That press conference is for the signing of the Veterans Choice Act. So he is 3 steps removed already. And he's trying to message his way out of this. Everyone needs to look around at America right now. America is bad. It is in a bad, bad situation. And he is the president. And so we need to hold him responsible for how bad things are, because he is a terrible leader. He does not have the instinct in this moment to fix anything, except maybe poll numbers. Maybe.
And I would argue he's incompetent at that as well. I mean, the choices he's made over the past few months have just been horrendous. I know not everyone agrees. I personally think that he has made this into a competitive race when it did not have to be a competitive race for him. And he has stumbled his way into this. And, I mean, it's like, I know some people will say it's just, like, people are sick of hearing him. They're sick of talking about him. I know, because I am. But there are acts of police brutality playing out on the streets of American cities that they are so overwhelming in their number and brutality that even on a show like this that is literally designed just to catalog things like that, we can't catalog all of it. And his response to that, in the rare moments where he sticks his head out of the hole in the ground where he's dwelling, is to say, if you don't crush these protests, you're being too proud.
I don't get it.
More people are going to be brutalized. More people are going to die. Again, there was not a shred, there was not a fig leaf of acknowledgement that anything needs to change ever. And that is the uniform position across the right, other than Justin Amash, apparently. And maybe Murkowski. She's thinking about it. She'll get back. She'll get back to you. She'll get back someday when she's done thinking about it. Is nothing needs to change. These protests are 100% illegitimate. And those are the reasonable right-wingers, are you're all wrong. The unreasonable ones are saying you're all terrorists. And both of those opinions are on Fox News every single day. And Trump retweeted that letter, I forget exactly from who, but saying that these protesters are all terrorists, effectively.
And at the same time, these are coming... like, I can't help but laugh. These are coming from, like, there's a lot of Tea Partiers. Mm-hmm. And the Tea Party was destruction of property, plus, like, weird racism, though. Like, they dressed as Mohawk Indians as they did it. Like, you guys are basing your movement on people who destroyed property to make a point. I'm not advocating for the destruction of property, but you guys are. Mm-hmm. Like, you are. I'm just advocating for people to say, for enough people to be in the streets to say, hey, maybe we should change things. No, definitely we should change things. And I hope that you get to a point at first of maybe we should change things.
This press conference was intended to be him talking about the economy. And there is some positive economic news. Unemployment rate is down to 13.3%. Which is an improvement, but let's put it in historical context. For recoveries, yes, we have recovered a little bit, but we're in that red line. And so maybe let's not have too big of a party just yet. Yes, for everyone who got their jobs back, about half of which are people who'd been temporarily furloughed and are being brought back, that is obviously much needed help. And it's much needed, especially since the government cared so little to help you over the past few months. So that is good. Let's acknowledge that. Total payroll employment is still down 12.8% over the past 3 months. 19.6 million jobs on net have been shuttered across much of the economy. And I want to go to one particular part of that, because in the same way that the coronavirus has had a disproportionate impact on Black and brown people, the economic impact has similarly been like that. And while there's been some improvement in these most recent numbers, not for those communities, which was brought up to Donald Trump during his press conference by Yamiche Alcindor. And take a look how Donald Trump responded to those concerns, bearing in mind the nature of the protests going on around the country.
Black unemployment went up by 0.1%. Asian American unemployment went up by 0.5%. How is that a victory?
You are something.
How is that a victory?
Thank you very much.
She said, so why are you celebrating when these individuals who are crying out for you to recognize them are actually they're doing even worse. There's been like a little bit of improvement for some people, but they're doing worse. You're really something, he says.
You're really something. And as he said, so Fox News helps Trump out a lot. One way they helped him out was with the placement of their lower third, which is the part of the screen that's typically down here, because it covers up the teeny tiny baby desk he's at. He sits down at the most comically tiny desk. Stephen Moore is Trump's economic advisor, the guy who thinks he's awesome because he sometimes goes on Bill Maher's show. He says, I'm doing cartwheels in my living room. That's what he said about the jobs numbers.
Ugh.
Jim Cramer, it's stupendous, he said. Trump, George Floyd looking down and smiling. Like, read the country, Ron. Read the country. Because if you look around, it's obviously not good. And this shows just how detached from reality you are. There is horrible, horrible stuff happening in America. People are dying. People are getting killed. This feeling, unfortunately, is what Trump thrives on. And he's not going to change. He's not going to suddenly pivot. It would probably help him if he pivoted and came up with a different strategy. But he is, we always wonder. We talk about the Great American Experiment. The Great American Experiment now is, what if someone only campaigned the same way all the time? Like Bernie Sanders supporters say, Bernie hasn't changed in 20 years, in 40, 50 years. And he's always been fighting for the same thing. And that's a good thing. That's integrity. But Trump has always also been doing the same thing for 40, 50 years, which is just trying to market himself. And since he got into politics 4 years ago, the guy has thrived on vitriol and division. And he hasn't changed. Probably should. Now we get to see how this experiment plays out if he continues to do the same thing, even when America is coming apart at the seams.
I'm glad that you pointed out some of those, the Jim Cramer and stuff like that. And look, like we said, anyone who gets their job back, obviously much needed, long needed. Half of the job, like I said, half of the jobs coming back, or half of the new employment is people who'd been furloughed. Half of the people who, like, there's tons of people who've been furloughed have not come back. And maybe hypothetically, if there had been more aid to the many small businesses, a lot of this is leisure and food and things like that. And what about the experience of those people, even the ones who got their jobs back? What has their experience been like for the past couple of months? Have they been just, hanging out at their mansions and making it rain with the $1,200 that were given to them? Like Stephen Moore and Jim Cramer, man, they had a bad period in the stock market for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. That already long since recovered. But the savings that evaporated, plans to open up your own business, all of that, does that come back suddenly? Do all these people just get back their savings that they had to burn through, or the debt that they had to go in over the past 2 months? No. Are they doing cartwheels? I doubt it. And the thing is, really fast, all of these people claim to be populists. The politicians and the people on Fox who support them are supposedly against the elites. They're for the people who've been ignored, the silent Americans that the elites forget about. And weirdly, their gold-toileted billionaire is excited that the stock market's doing better and is ignoring the concerns, mainly about law enforcement, but there's a lot of other concerns that have driven people to the streets in all 50 states. I mean, when are we going to learn how much of a charade this is?
I don't know, man. I gotta watch the desk he goes over to.
Oh my
Look at
God.
that. That's his tiny desk. Tiny desk boy. Bunker boy's baby desk. That dude. Come on, bro.
So
but
this
as
is
you saw,
again.
and when she starts asking a question, he goes, shh.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I should have. So yeah, I apologize. This is the church. This is all it is. It's, let's have a little photo op and pretend that things are going well. We're going to have a photo op where we're telling you that the economy is doing just fine. You don't have to worry about it. And he's signing a bill. It's like normal times. Him standing in front of a church. He has to look strong.
He's going to Mount Rushmore next.
Yeah, he's going to sit on a tiny little chair at it. Like, all of these things that are intended to make him look strong only make him look strong if you don't care about the protests, and thus don't care about the fact that he's ignoring it, that he has no ability or willingness to bring people together or to fix the actual problems that America faces. If all you want is for him to sit sullenly at a tiny little desk and say little, I'm allowed to say it, little bitchy things to reporters, if that's what you want, then sure, he's strong. Yeah, that's your strong man.
He sits at
How
his little
pathetic
desk.
American
Like,
fascism is.
You expect him to just pull out his little foldy desk he got from Target. Like, okay, here's my little desk. Am I right? That thing now. Shh. And his stupid signature, which is just this.
Yeah.
He's such a turd. And the people who think he's strong, I can't.
Oh my God.
I can't even.
Oh my God. How pathetic.
we need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, "You must unlearn what you have learned." And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Donald Trump swears and will swear for the end of his days, because he will be tweeting about this for the next 5 years, that he did not flee in fear to a bunker earlier this week. I don't even care anymore, but he definitely does, because he made a reference to it today. Let's take a look.
Washington Secret Service, by the way, are unbelievable. The job they did at the White House is unbelievable. There was never any form of like, oh, gee, this sounds dangerous.
It's weird that you bring it up then. If there was never anything, then why? No, we weren't sitting there scared. I wasn't, sitting in an oversized suit filled with brown material. I wasn't terrified, I swear. I was actually laughing, and all my friends were laughing too off screen.
It was so good. I went down to inspect it, and I made sure that they could inspect that my blankie was there. I wanted to make sure that they could maybe inspect me some warm milk and read me a story. And make sure that, and maybe he did. Maybe he did just go down to the basement because the toilet's better and he can flush his entire pants after he craps them.
Yeah,
It's hilarious. And he said, his lies are so bad. It's like, I inspected it two and a half times. Mm-hmm. Would you hop on one leg when you went down there? That doesn't just lie simply. Mm-hmm. Lie simply. All his lies, he just keeps going back to them. It is such proof. It's
a pathetic move. I mean, the thing is, you look at it from the outside and you think, well, why would he be any better? Why would he be any stronger? Why would he be any better at lying? Why would he be any smarter when he doesn't have to be? It's like the body only gets as strong as it needs to be for the activity level you put it through. Well, your proto-fascist dictator is only as good as the base that installs him. Yeah. Why are Charlie Kirk's tweets so stupid? Because they still get retweeted. Why think if you don't have to? Yeah. Why would Trump actually be strong? Do
you want an answer to that?
He could get strong and look like an alpha male if he wanted to, but he doesn't need to, because the base he's trying to appeal to are weaker and stupider.
No, the fact, no. Well, no, the fact, the I don't know. If we're putting together the equation, one of the constants will be power, will be the coefficient of societal friction is, listen, they don't have to engage in that intellectual debate because they have the power. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about. We think that if we put all the ideas out there, they will have no choice but to surrender and say, okay, that makes more sense than my point. But no.
I did think that.
I know.
It's gone.
I know. But I mean, at our core, we hope.
Yes.
Right? But that friction is just where they are hunkering down, looking at you with those little smirks they have. They're like, Trump 2020. When they yell at protesters, Trump. Mm-hmm. That little smirk is knowing that they have power.
Yeah, that's
true. And
we
got to prove that they don't. And they don't, and that's what the trolling is. That's the little capo, which is just like, I'm just messing with you because I don't have to take this seriously.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. So as we proceeded week by week through the pandemic and the lockdowns as a result of it, one of the silver linings that people looked to was, well, at least we're polluting less, we're emitting less carbon. Maybe this will be good temporarily for the environment. And maybe it was, but based on the numbers, it wasn't good enough. Take a look at this. Globally, it was the warmest May on record, even though the economies of many countries were shut down in a way they never have really been before and probably never will be again. It was 0.7 degrees Celsius warmer than the norm on average in Europe this May. And so we had record temperatures. Let's see, you see how much more it was on average. And you also had new records for atmospheric CO2 levels. Even though things were shut down, at that point had already been shut down for 6 weeks. And then through the course of May, we still set records. So I don't want to take away people's silver lining if that's one of the things that's keeping them in this thing. But it is a reminder that while we obviously have a lot of really timely things that we're dealing with, we also have things that we're going to have to continue to fight on.
Yes, I agree. It was noticeably clearer in Los Angeles for quite some time.
Like the air quality?
The air quality was cleaner, and we do get some coming across the Pacific typically that we didn't get anymore in terms of pollution. And I will say that for the first time, I think on record, renewables outdid coal, which is a silver lining. I think in a month or a quarter, I forget. But John, more bad is happening on a global scale.
I know it's like here, I definitely noticed it. I mean, we noticed how much more you could see the hills or whatever from where we live in LA. And I did notice that while that effect seemed to be there a couple weeks into the lockdowns, it didn't seem like it continued to get better and better and better or anything like that. And, there was anecdotal information coming from a lot of different parts of the world that like mountains were visible in the distance that weren't before. And you could see the maps of pollution levels. But apparently some of those short-term changes have short-term effects, and that's it. And overall, the trend is still in the wrong direction. By the way, very timely, but at Trump's press conference, he spent quite a bit of time attacking the Green New Deal, calling it baby talk, saying we have the best air and the best water, because, of course, that's what climate change is about, is water quality. And, of course, we don't have the best air.
Which he's making worse, which he literally made worse.
Yeah, they stripped out new regulations this week. Like, under the cover of all of what's going on, they're continuing to defang the EPA.
And let me
turn
just
it
say,
against itself.
Baby talk.
Mm-hmm.
Baby talk coming from a guy. Here's a direct quote. Him talking about George. Hopefully George is looking down right now and saying, this is a great thing that happened for our country. A great day for him. A great day for everybody. This is a great day for everybody. This is a great, great day in terms of the equality. Like, that's a baby talk. This is a great day for everybody. This is a great, great day. Great day. Like, that is Muppet talk from our Muppet president. And talk about baby talk. He goes and sits at his baby desk to sign his bill.
Yeah.
I'm going to write my name.
If you had a baby, and after educating it, that's the best it could do, damn the shame you'd feel.
A little tiny baby boy.
Yes. Now that protests have been going on for about a week and have spread around the country and don't seem to be backing down, and videos of brutality against the protesters are starting to spread, you are predictably hearing calls from the right that these protesters just need to be peaceful and calm down a little bit. We would totally listen if you just did that. Well, Media Matters decided to do a little bit of a mashup of how the right has responded to the most recent protests and how they responded to the kneeling in the NFL and those sorts of protests back a few years ago.
Peaceful protests Frankly, in my mind, justifiable, understandable.
Peaceful protest is the hallmark of a free society. We all know that.
And the people that want to peacefully protest, I'm all for it. I'd be out there protesting too.
You did own a professional football team. What would you do with Colin Kaepernick?
I don't think I'm going to tell you what I do.
You don't stand up in the middle of our workplace and start creating chaos because we get fired.
But they're not creating chaos.
That's chaos.
So why is this a big deal? Why is it, in the end, dangerous for this country?
These acts of protest are beyond disrespectful.
He's trying to make a point, but I don't think he's making it the correct way. I think what he's doing is very bad for the spirit of the country.
Just because something is legal doesn't mean you ought to do it.
Colin Kaepernick gives money to terrorists.
Using the excuse of Black Lives Matter or some other issue that they probably haven't even read up on. They just repeat whatever Colin Kaepernick says on any given day.
So look at the people he's donated money to. These are radicals in many cases, very anti-American, ethnocentrically racist black organizations, and again, built on a lot.
So that is how they responded back then. Saying that it was an attack against America, refusing to acknowledge the grievances when they are described. And now they are saying, well, if you just did the peaceful stuff, we would listen and presumably things would change. But it wasn't that long ago, and people haven't forgotten. There is no protest that is considered legitimate.
Right. That's it. It's an inconvenience for them, and they don't have to listen because they have the power, period. That's all that they're trying to communicate. And they are having a tougher time now making that point. There's still people, I mean, the uphill that you have to go against is hundreds of years of a system. And then also social media giving people plenty of stuff to just soothe their addled minds and tell them they're right, you're right, you're right. The other side is wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong. But there are videos like the ones that everybody sees. Like everybody sees these videos of police brutality in crowds, and no one has any other, and no one has a counter argument to that. Mm-hmm. They're trying to distract you from it, but that doesn't change the problem. And they want an excuse to stop paying attention. And so their excuse to stop paying attention is, here's a video of a target on fire, and that's it. But we need to keep the focus back on this in terms of the hypocrisy, like the shut up and dribble from Laura Ingraham versus the, oh, you know what? Drew Brees is allowed to have a point. That's it. Hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to say it's at the time of the anthem. At the time of the anthem. How about a time when America's on fire?
Yeah. Yeah, and look, I'm glad that you pointed out. If you hadn't, I would have, because we care about hypocrisy. But the thing is, like she doesn't care if we point out her hypocrisy. She would like it because she wants her fans to know that she has a different standard for white athletes than black athletes. It's not like the mask is pulled off at the end of a Scooby-Doo and she's been revealed. It was already off. Her fans want her to be nice to white conservative athletes and to attack black athletes. That's it. And the saying that, like, if you guys were just peaceful, if you just stop, if there was no looting, if there was no anything, then what exactly? What, Sean Hannity would meet up with these organizers and Trump would come out and they'd draft resolutions and everything would change. Who thinks that? These are inconvenient and scary for them, and so they want them to stop. That's it. That's the goal. Why would they stop? Why? Yeah. Let's quick poll the audience. Okay, I want you to say yes if you think that if everything just calmed down and everyone took a second, that then Mitch McConnell and Trump would come out and work with the protesters. Say yes. If you think that that's absolute BS, say BS. Okay, in the comments. Thank you. Sorry, what's up?
Yeah, but that's they're not honest actors. They're actors. Well, they're not honest actors. They definitely just want to have an audience, and they want to make money off of that. And there's a lot of people out in the media landscape now, and that is their only priority. Mm-hmm. John doesn't have that priority because we just did a climate change video. And I can prove through analytics that costs us money and doesn't make us money, but he prioritizes getting the actual stories out to people that will materially affect their lives. So that's very, very real.
Well, we're gonna prove you wrong, because watch, that climate video, like all of them, is gonna get 1 million views. No,
it will not.
No,
I'm sorry.
No,
but
if you want the views, you do yet another video about the war on Yemen. No, wait, that doesn't get any views either. No. Unfortunately, people don't generally seem to care about the things that they should care the most about. But anyway, continue.
But that's it. They're if people are protesting, they'll find something wrong with it. You know, if people are protesting, Fox News will find something wrong with it. And that thing wrong with it is completely off the through line of what the protest is. So if it's a protest of police brutality during the national anthem, they'll say, well, you shouldn't do that during the national anthem. If it's a peaceful protest not during the national anthem, it'll be like, here, let me play a video of, I'm going to say the word Antifa over and over again.
Yep.
And share this hilarious Project Veritas video of me doing this.
With glasses.
I am from Antifa. And then like put over it, I look good. And then put over top of it like the mortis of recording now video that I don't know if anyone saw, had like 25 frames per second when they did this secret video. 25 frames per second is in Britain. Like that's what they do because their plugs are different. Yeah. That's why it's 25 frames a second. It has nothing to it is absolute hogwash and stupidity, but they don't feel like they actually have to do anything. And what we need to do is stay on keep it up. And keep protesting them no matter how BS their arguments are.
I agree. Yeah, and again, not honest actors. And by the way, the chat was all BS. And then I realized if someone was joining the stream at that moment, they would not have a high opinion of the stream if everyone was just yelling at us, BS! So I'm going to think about that next time. But I do agree.
So
yeah,
if you think John should change, I want the poll to say, John's an idiot. If you want John to stay the same, say, John's a liar.
Those are your options, America.
Don't do that.
But yeah, the larger point is there is no protest that they would consider legitimate until it is so small that they have no need to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's Friday, and that means it's time to take out the trash. Brett Erlich, it's time to launch a couple of people into the bin. Who's your garbage person of the week?
My garbage person of the week is Drew Brees.
Mm-hmm.
There he is in full color. Sort of in blown out backlight. Drew Brees got into hot water for saying this about people protesting during the national anthem.
I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag of the United States of America or our country. Let me just tell you what I see or what I feel when the national anthem is played and when I look at the flag of the United States. I envision my two grandfathers who fought for this country during World War II. And in many cases, it brings me to tears, thinking about all that has been sacrificed, not just those in the military, but for that matter, those throughout the civil rights movements of the 60s. And is everything right with our country right now? No, it's not. We still have a long way to go. But I think what you do by standing there and showing respect to the flag with your hand over your heart is it shows unity. It shows that we are all in this together. We can all do better. And that we are all part of the solution.
So that he never at one. There's a lot wrong with it. Mm-hmm. One specifically is if you say that we're all going to stand together, we all need to stand together and be part of the solution. Did he stop for one moment and ask himself, am I part of the solution?
Mm-hmm. Am I actually concerned about the solution?
Am I doing anything to create a solution? No, he didn't. And that is explicitly what was asked for in that. By people making statements, which we played earlier in the show, supporting why they're doing it. But no, Drew Brees is doing something that I've seen so many people do, which is just sit there and say, what do they even want, these rich football players? Like, well, why don't you just they've told you. They've told you policy item after policy item, and then just shared their personal experiences. Malcolm Jenkins, who plays with Breeze, he said, "I'm disappointed and I'm hurt." And he about the points that Drew made about his own grandfathers, shared something with everyone and basically said, "Hey, my grandfathers fought in that war too, and when they came back, they didn't receive a hero's welcome."
Yep.
And that, for so many folks, it just has to say that it has to blow their mind unless their mind isn't open.
Yeah.
If it's open just a crack, when that thought gets in there, they have to come around. And and then Drew Brees came out and said, and he made an apology after he got blowback from LeBron James, from his teammates, from multiple people in the NFL who recently released a video that everybody should go see, just saying what the problem is. And in the wake of the apology, there's some people who said, listen, maybe he's responding to it this way because he just really hasn't had those conversations. But one of his former teammates, made this tweet, and we don't have the graphic, but it's Lamar Lewis, and he said, Drew Brees was once my teammate, had a long intellectual talk with him in the cold tub once. Drew, you're a smart man. This ain't ignorance. This is picking a side and not caring enough to fight for justice because you're comfortable within your own bubble. Silence is murder. And it's not that he hasn't had these conversations. He's made a decision to be on one side. And it's worse because of what sports symbolizes for a city. Like, I think it's a non-zero factor in this that things are worse because there aren't sports, because there isn't that thing that we can have at least a little release on. And it's by no means a large portion of it, but it's there. And at the very least, when there is no sports happening, you would want to count on the sports figures to do something to help save America. And he's just not doing it. Instead, things like this surface. We have this photo of Drew Brees and Donald Trump in not just anywhere, but in a luxury box with the biggest watch I've ever seen. And look at the crap-eating grins.
Yep.
And not only that, but in what city does he play for? New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to, you're born yesterday if you don't think that city needs someone to be a leader in terms of racial justice. Look at me. I'm so upset that I'm
flickering.
I'm falling deeper into the matrix.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Look, I can't say anything about what he's said in the past. Don't follow him because he's an athlete. And so I don't know anything about him. But yeah, no, he knows enough to say, we need to do something else that gets us to the solution, which is good that you're one of the people that acknowledges that there's a problem that needs to be solved. But it's also possible that what you really want to get back to is the time when you weren't being forced to think about this, when it was comfortable and happy and all of that.
And man, we talked about it on the Happy Half Hour, which everybody should watch tonight, but it's just, it has to matter. I mean, it matters is the perfect word, because it just needs people who have the potential to be like, I'm not affected, so I'm just going to walk away. Like, you have to keep it up until those folks, and more of them are coming around. Mm-hmm. Like, this is a more like cross-cultural series of protests than we have ever seen. So keep it up. Don't stop, because people like Drew Brees, are already rich and detached, and have had the opportunity to make up their mind about this and factor in other opinions when doing so. And it's years after Kaepernick took a knee.
Yeah.
And I am proud of America that this is a country where he still needs to face it.
For my garbage person this week, I am going to be throwing into the bin Wolverine. Not actual Wolverine or the actor. This was just sort of the closest approximation of a trend in America that I have noticed, and it is people who are horny to become vigilantes and to throw themselves into these protests and possibly hurt or kill some people. So you had the guy with the sword in Dallas. You had the guy with the bow. I'm not sure exactly where that was. those are weirdly medieval weapons to confront protesters with and possibly kill someone, but they're not the weirdest. I want you to take a look at this video. This happened yesterday in Queens, and take a look at what happened when a guy in a car started berating people who'd been protesting. They say he had tried to hit them with his car. We don't have video of that, but here is what happened near the end.
Yeah, run!
So if you're not sure exactly what that is, that's because nobody knows exactly what that is, but he had some sort of multi-bladed glove weapon.
Sweaty Kruger.
Exactly. Now, thankfully, no one was hurt. He was identified and eventually taken in. He surrendered himself at the police, reckless endangerment, menacing, criminal possession of a weapon. But this is another individual who decided to arm themselves and go out there. And the thing is, I'm sure he thought and will say, well, they were doing stuff, and so I had to defend myself, which is undercut a bit by you rushing after them and having that Assassin's Creed weapon on you. Why does anyone have that? Why did you have that in your car on your hand to deploy against these people who are protesting?
But, like, be a person, dude. Like, we just did it. We just talked about sports. But, like, there was something that my coaches would say, which is, don't be a robot. Don't just because you saw these one time I told you to do this one thing. When you realize that it doesn't apply, you need to adjust. And think of everything that must have happened for this guy to get to the point before he gets out of his car. So this guy was surfing the web and ended up probably seeing a video either of Antifa from Project Veritas or something that was like some place on fire or someone's tweet about that may or may not, that maybe saw the tweet that proved to be fake. He ended up seeing a tweet that proved to be fake from someone who was a white supremacist claiming to be Antifa, saying, let's go to the white people's houses and take what's ours. That was proven to be set up by trolls who are trying to fake everybody out and get you to go attack folks. So he got in that room, and as he's doing it, he's like wetting his knives. Like he's sharpening his knives and putting on this thing that he made, which obviously took at least 20 minutes to make. Probably days. Days. It either took 20 minutes or 3 years to make this thing, right? So then he gets to the point where I'm going to drive down and I'm going to get people's up.
Yeah.
But at a point when you pull up in your Ford Explorer and you park it on the street and when you see them just standing there, you got to have a moment where you think to yourself, wow, these are just people on the street.
Yeah, I'm now running at people on the street with an insane thing that I made. Yeah. That's who you are. That is your identity now, is you're the person who went out looking for the first person that you felt justified to try to at least threaten, if not gut, with your weapons. I saw people saying they thought it was a punch dagger or katana. I don't think that it was either of those things. God only knows what it is. God only knows if it was real or if it was ornamental. I know it must have been absolutely terrifying for those protesters when this person comes out. But anyway, while I know, look, the Wolverine thing was a joke or whatever, this is a trend now of people wanting to get involved to attack the protesters. They want to put themselves into danger so they can justify potentially lethal force. That is a thing in America. That is what the Zimmermans are about. That's what all these people do. They put themselves in a position where they feel like they're in danger, and then anything they do can be justified. And thankfully, nobody apparently got hurt there. But when you got people with swords and bows and that guy, and there was a grandmother who tried to block a street from people with a baseball bat, this is not a good idea. You probably saw the video of protesters walking past this wall that had a bunch of white guys with AR-15s outside of it. Like, there are enough people who are willing to use their guns. There are enough people who secretly really want to use their guns. And so to have the president saying, something, something Second Amendment when talking about these protesters, it is going to end with people dead.
Yep.
Now, really fast, I do want to let you know that while that's Brett's Garbage Person and mine, what about all of you? Because we polled you for suggestions and then put together a poll on the community tab that this time just about 20,000 people participated in. And it looks like right now Tom Cotton got 3% of the vote as the community garbage person. Bill Barr is at 5%. Citizens attacking the protesters at 3%. So people do not agree with me. The police are at 32%, but Trump still wins with 58% of the vote. He basically always wins when he's on there. So he will not be on there next time because he was the winner. But police actually were the choice last time around. And so people are still pretty laser focused on that. And yeah, it's when you go out there and you protest, like you shouldn't be taking your life into your hands, but you just might be. And you never know where it's going to happen. I mean, these videos are not just from DC. They're not just from New York. They're from all over the place.
Yep.
With just about 3 weeks left until the big New York primary, I am very excited to welcome back to the show and the network once again, Sean Chowdhury. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Thank you for having me back on, John. Appreciate this.
Glad to have you here. So, a candidate for New York's 5th District, that has been one of the parts of the country and the world that have been, rocked by a number of different big developments over the past few months. So, talk to me about the last couple of weeks and months of campaigning in that area.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like nothing has been the same since Kobe Bryant passed away. 2020 has just been a whirlwind. With the whole coronavirus pandemic, we as a campaign, we realized how severe the situation was going to be. So we were in the middle of the petitioning period, trying to collect signatures just to get on the ballot. Unfortunately, New York State really allowed us to cut those numbers to get on the ballot, but we suspended our petitioning right away because we wanted to keep our petitioners and people safe from what was going on. And because we were organizers first, we quickly switched our campaign to digital organizing. So first thing we did was do wellness checks on voters. Instead of asking for votes, we're just making sure that they had, a roof over their head, making sure they had food, essential items like medication. And once we got a list of the needs of what people needed, we decided, we can definitely do more because we want to be a real reflection of what we're trying to aspire of our campaign, which is to be on the front lines with our community on a daily basis. So we turned our campaign into a mutual aid effort. So we delivered groceries to about almost 1,000 families in the district.
Wow.
And at no cost. We pretty much took all of our donations from the months of March and April and used it to just purchasing groceries for families during this difficult time. So that's been, it's been really great that we did that. And just that experience alone just really tells you, the hardship of what everyday people are going through. It's not like we didn't know it already, but just to hear the same stories over and over again, we're seeing how vulnerable this economy is, and that it continuously bails out the rich and powerful, and the working families continuously are being left behind. Yeah. And now that we're transitioning what's going on with the unjust system in this country, I think that the conversations of defunding the police, of trying to really address systemic racism head on. I think that these conversations are starting to really be at a tipping point. I think that Black Americans have constantly been left behind. That trying to reform what's wrong with the system right now, it's not going to work. We need to do something about it. With it radically, and I think that reforming a system that was built on slavery patrol, I think we need to completely dismantle it. Especially here in New York 5, it is a majority district, 50% Black, 50% of people of color, Latinos, South Asians, and I see it every day as someone who lives in public housing. I hear the police sirens. I see, as soon as I step out, I see brothers and sisters being harassed by the police for unjust reasons. And, I just can't imagine, even though I've been stopped and frisked, I've never had the severe extent as my Black comrades of, what they've experienced. And I'm just I'm just here standing in solidarity. I've done everything I can and continue going to do to stand in solidarity. These peaceful protests, I don't think that we need to continue to be peaceful. We need to make sure that our demands are being met. And that's what I want to do heading into DC. So, we'll see what happens going forward. I think that, even though the cops are being charged, obviously that is just not that's not true justice. So we need to dismantle this whole system right now.
Yeah, and while the 4 cops involved in the murder of George Floyd are now being charged, every day we're seeing incidents of police brutality that are raising justifiable cries for them to be charged as well. And so what I'm interested in is we have Trump is demagoguing against the protesters, certainly nationally, but you also have a lot of criticism of Cuomo and of de Blasio and how they've managed this, their unwillingness to acknowledge the brutality that's already happened in New York. Let's say that hypothetically right now you were holding Meeks's seat, that you were already in office. What would you be doing to raise awareness, to push for change, whether nationally or in New York specifically?
Yeah, I mean, one, I would call for de Blasio to resign. I am really interested with what's going to happen locally next year if the mayoral elections coming up. If I look to be the next congressman, I will look to support the most progressive candidate that will challenge the police unions, that will hold the police chiefs and DAs accountable what's going on in the streets. I would call on the governor to really demilitarize the police. There is no reason why we need 4,000 more cops on the streets. There's no reason why we need the military out on the streets. I just think that, everything that we preach about fighting for liberty and justice, it should not come in a fascist, authoritative situation right now. And that's what we're seeing. So there's not much, we cannot talk about Trump and then not talk about what's going on in our own state when we're essentially doing the same thing to our people. We've seen, especially in the Bronx right now with what's going on, even after the curfew that's been placed, the police, we know people are not stupid. We know people are being abused. We know people are being riled up by the police, and that is just wrong. So I really hope to call on the governor to really demilitarize the police and call to really address the systemic racism head on. And we need to do something about it now on both the state and federal level.
And while, rightfully you're pointing out the issues with de Blasio, we should note that Meeks, the candidate you're running against right now, the current incumbent, endorsed Mike Bloomberg during the recent primary, back when Bloomberg was receiving a ton of criticism for his obvious position in pushing for stop and frisk, which arguably led to quite a bit of the culture that we're now seeing playing out on the streets of New York. So it seems like a pretty big difference between you and Meeks. We've got just 3 weeks until the primary. What are your plans? I know that a lot of the normal ways that you'd be campaigning, as you said, you've had to really shift gears. What do you see these last 3 weeks being like?
Digital campaigning has been going really, really well for us. We've been making phone calls, been text banking nonstop, and we really are able to reach out to voters because since most people are self-isolated, people are replying to their phone calls, their text messages, and they're seeing that for the first time, probably in a very long time in the district, that they have more than just one option, that we don't have to continuously to work the status quo in a district that has a 2% voter turnout in congressional primaries. We're looking to really make some noise, and I think that we're gonna. I'm feeling confident. I feel like most candidates would be feeling nervous around this time. I do have those sleepless nights, but I'm feeling good at the same time, and I think that we could. I'm hoping, and I really believe that we're gonna be winning this thing.
Okay. Well, and I know that I can say nationally, I know a lot of progressives have felt a little bit sort of adrift after what happened with the primary, and they're looking for politicians at other levels that they can support. It's possible that you might have already seen some of that effect on donations and things like that people turning to these other levels. And Sean, where can people find out more about your campaign, your platform, and what you're doing leading up to this primary?
Yeah, so 3 weeks left. We still do need volunteers. So if you want to volunteer, help us make phone calls, email us at info at Sean, SHAN2020.com. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Shaniyat 2020.
Okay, thank you so much, New York 5 candidate Shaniyat Chowdhury. Thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck in the upcoming primary.
Thanks so much, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Very excited to welcome back once again to the show candidate for the 5th District of Washington, Chris Armitage. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks again for having me, John. I appreciate it.
Always glad to have you here. It's been a bit since we checked in on the race, and obviously a lot has been going on in the country. Since then, I know that you actually just spent time during the weekend attending one of the apparently very well-attended protests in your area. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's been an interesting development, and with the growth of the campaign and what's emerged as me versus our Republican incumbent in a very serious way, being out there to show solidarity felt more important than ever. Mm-hmm. We had 4,000 people marching in the streets of Spokane, Washington, and it's a town of about 250,000 people, the city, and so the turnout was double anything else we've had, and it was I was very proud of Spokane on that day.
Yeah, and how was the response from law enforcement in the area?
During the daytime, the main cops they were taking a knee with a lot of our folks, and were pretty respectful. And the nighttime was different once the riot gear folks came out. And of course, they had their big, basically MRAPs up armored out there as a show of force. But the daytime was peaceful. And as it got later is when the tear gas started coming out.
Yeah. What I'm curious about is we talked to a number of candidates with very different experiences. You are fairly unique in the sort of candidate that we talked about, that you have experience with law enforcement, experience with the military. How does that influence your perspective here, or your ability to talk about these issues when you have a different experience than a lot of these other candidates?
It can be challenging, particularly in our political lane, to talk about periods of our lives where we were part of systems and structures that really contribute to oppression. Mm-hmm. And so, I've done those jobs, but I have a master's in Homeland Security, and personally was a first responder, 911 operator, did some military law enforcement, deployed on non-combat deployments. And I use that experience today to talk about how, we need to have respect for human dignity. And people are receptive to that. And I think a lot of the people who've left law enforcement, like myself, and use their knowledge and their experience to give much more in-depth and as informed as you can get when it comes to having actually experienced that yourself. That's something that can build our movement stronger, the movement to actually stop extrajudicial killings in our own country, because that's what it is. It's unconstitutional. It takes away someone's right to due process. It is cruel and unusual punishment. You could make strong cases for how law enforcement killing someone who hasn't been accused of a crime is unconstitutional. It's against at least 7 constitutional amendments.
Yeah. Well, look, we know that at least for the next 5 or 6 months, if change is going to come, it's probably going to be in towns and cities, in states. Trump seems incredibly opposed. The Republican Party nationally seems incredibly opposed to doing literally anything, even acknowledging that change needs to happen. The Democrats are theoretically better, but they also, most of them, seem to be hiding from day to day. If you end up joining them, if you end up in the House, what are some of the changes that you'd like to see put into place as a result of all that's been going on?
Well, we need a more reactive law enforcement apparatus. Right now, they are essentially an occupying military force in hostile territory. The goal isn't peace, it's compliance. Mm-hmm. And so changing that is going to take completely altering how we hire law enforcement, the laws that we're asking them to enforce. For example, the war on drugs, that's a war waged on our own streets against our own people. When you go to pre-deployment training, they teach you anybody you talk to could have a bomb or a gun, and you better be ready to use your gun first if you want to go home. That's the same thing we're teaching law enforcement officers. We are not the people they're trying to protect. And I say that as everyone, but particularly marginalized, impacted communities face the biggest threats. And so in Congress, we're going to need to create a national certification body that is completely independent from law enforcement structures, and their job is to police the police with complete transparency, access to everything. They can give certification just like the bar, and they can remove certification. And the qualifications that they're looking for are decided by we the people. Mm-hmm. Another thing, in most European countries, most nations around the earth, law enforcement officers don't carry guns wherever they go. In fact, you have to call for backup that is armed if you need it. Where are we seeing the escalation today? It's where cops show up in riot gear and they get trained for this. They don't train to de-escalate. They train to prepare for escalation. Yeah. And so they're chomping at the bit. Yeah. And we need to bring people on board who are going to focus on actually being there for our community. We spend more on law enforcement than any other country, and we have more criminal activity, because when you start treating everyone in your community like they're a criminal, it's gonna create a combative situation. It's just like an occupying military force.
Yeah. Yeah, and while I think you're right to point out that the police do function in many ways like an occupying military force, and certainly we equip them as if they were military, better equipped than the militaries of many countries. For Trump, that's not enough. He wants to send in the actual military, the National Guard. He wants to dominate the streets and things like that. I'm sure you saw the clearing out of the streets in D.C. and the buzzing people with the helicopter and things like that. As someone who has served in the military, what do you think about the way that Trump seems to see the place of the military in quelling these sorts of protests?
Oh, it's the same as a dictator or any sort of tyrannical, autocrat. That's not, James Mattis spoke out. General James Mattis, one of the most respected people in the modern era, one of the most respected generals in the modern era, said that Donald Trump's a threat to our Constitution. And that's what we're looking at. If you just swap out the word America for the word China, and people start to get it. When you say, I heard last weekend there were 100 protests across the nation and of China. And then the government called the protesters who were upset about police brutality, called them terrorists, and then is talking about sending the military out to mow people down who are peacefully protesting.
Yeah.
Now change out the word China for America. This is what the USSR was doing. This is what authoritarian regimes do. It's unconstitutional. It's not what this country was in. When we started this country, we weren't perfect, but we knew we had to continue to get better, and there were aspirations and ideals, and we have slid backwards. We're not moving in the right direction anymore.
Yeah. I think people are desperate for leadership right now. And where can people find out more about your campaign?
ArmitageForCongress.com. That's ARMITAGEFOR Congress.com. And also great interviews that you've let us do, which are on YouTube. But ArmitageForCongress.com. We got digital volunteering. We need more digital volunteers. If you can contribute, we just hit the $100,000 threshold. But we need to continue to push that up. We need to continue to bring the fight out here. I want to call out my opponent for their implicit support of all the things that are tearing this nation apart right now. We're fighting for our future. That's why our slogan's a future worth fighting for. When we thought of that, it was long before this was on the streets like it is now.
Yeah.
But we get the future we earn.
Yeah. Chris, thank you so much. Always appreciate you joining us on the show, and good luck.
Thanks again, John.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Derola. I'll see you soon.